Okay,
Morning po, Chef.
morning. Cyrus, good
Morning,
morning.
Chef.
Sophia, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Mitzi, morning.
Good morning, Chef.
Kit, morning.
Morning, Chef.
Morning, Jay. Morning.
Morning, Chef.
Kay Jen,
Morning, Chef.
good morning. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Nasaan na yung iba? Sa iba, hindi ko na kung pumapasok pa. There we go. Okay, good morning, Sandra.
Good morning po.
Hey, Catherine, good morning. Sandra is here. All right, siguro we can start para we can end early also. Okay, let me just take a screenshot. Okay, Jen, Sophia, can you open para we can all take a screenshot? Ayan. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3. Okay. You can turn it off na. Okay, huwag lang matulog ulit ha. Okay. Then mag-off na ako ng cam. Alright. So today, we will continue with our leadership discussions. Okay, again, why do we need to discuss this? Because in the as you saw naman in our discussion on kitchen hierarchy, okay, you guys will start as interns. Okay, so yun yung starting point ng lahat ng graduates. So interns and apprentice. We are teaching this next level. The biggest issue with graduates is they focus too much on skill. But they lack some of the traits that will actually push them to higher positions. Okay? So, yun yung lagi nagiging kulang with our students. With not only with our students, but with other schools also. Okay? They focus too much on skill, but they lack all the other main components on how you guys can actually speed up your promotion or your success in the kitchen. Okay? Yes, experience comes into play. Yes, your education will come into play. But aside from those two things, we want you guys to excel both in the skill level and your hospitality EQ. Okay, yun yung hinahanap nila ng most of the employees. Okay, employers, employers. Okay, they're looking for people who have both skill sets, the enough skill sets, but trainable, okay, in terms of different other skills. But they are looking for people who are built uh, and molded in the right yung EQ, emotional quotient for hospitality, which includes leadership. Okay, so how to manage a team, how to manage an event, how to manage your stocks, how to manage yourself, your people, your peers, co-workers, how you approach and what's your attitude with for when you're talking to front office, when you're talking to reception, when you're talking to other people, your dishwashers, your maintenance guys. Okay, so that's the reason why we are putting this in. Okay, we want you guys to have an advantage when you start your internship, when you start your apprenticeship. Okay, yes, it's off topic. Okay, if you can see, hindi siya about culinary specific. Okay, but it's more of character building, so that you guys know how to approach and deal with yung professional employers talaga, yung owners, business owners, how you guys will approach and talk to them. Okay, so our discussion today will revolve around communication, leadership, success. Okay, so successful leadership through efficient communication. Okay, so let's see first the importance of communication. Okay, with in relation to leadership and success in the field, actually in any field. Okay, so communication is a vital plays a vital role in terms of your career growth. If you guys don't know how to talk to people, if you guys don't know how to work with other people, or if you guys don't know how to inspire people to work, okay, and when you are actually pulling people down kasi very negative kayo, you give off parang people don't see you as a good example. Your body language doesn't say so na parang kang tinatamad lagi, parang kang hindi ka interesado. Your employers will be able to spot those things. Okay? If you come in and then you time out and parang hindi mo siya gustong ginagawa, why would I promote you to a higher position? Why would I hire you into a position that ito a regular position? Madalas nakikita natin is, sige, actually, even during your internship interview, okay, they will start to ask you. Okay, hindi naman nila titingnan anong ginawa niyo sa class, anong niluto.
Morning po siya.
Good morning. Okay, so they will not check kung anong ginawa niyo sa hands-on, anong ginawa niyo sa class. They will sit you down and ask you questions. Okay, if you don't know how to answer properly, and if your tone of voice is wrong, your body language is slouching, they will not get you even as an intern. Okay, so this is very important for you guys, for your character and also for your career growth. Okay. Okay, so let's see first how communication plays a big role in terms of leadership success or career success in general.
When the true leader speaks, things happen. There's a couple of myths in many organizations about this idea of communication. The first myth is this, that we need more communication, more information in the organization. We really don't. In most of our organizations, we have too much information. We have actually too much communication. What we need is more meaning. What we need is more purpose. The second myth is around communication as a leadership competency. Many of us think about leadership communication as a competency like strategic thinking or project management, innovation, and the like. Think of it as an important competency, but a competency nonetheless. In fact, it's not a competency. Most organizations put it in their top 2 or 3 competencies because they see its importance. But leadership communication is not a competency. It is your leadership. Everything you do as a leader is manifest through your communication. It is simply that important. Leadership and communication are synonymous. Now, management communication is fundamentally different. It's important, but fundamentally different. Managers communicate accurate and timely information to help people do their jobs and do their jobs better. Important work. Leaders communicate to get people to think and act differently and in concert, working together, aligned, committed. Leaders push people past the normal cynicism in organizations, the doubt and uncertainty that exists. Their voice gets people aligned, engaged, and committed. But the challenges leaders are up against in organizations today are enormous. Organizations are incredibly noisy places. Think about all the messages that are flying around organizations. So how can one voice, the leader's voice, your voice, be heard above the din of the crowd? It's not just about having good presentation skills. You know the skills: eye contact, modulating your voice, pacing your message, knowing your audience, tell them what you're going to tell them and tell them what you told them. These are all important skills. but not what it takes to be an effective leadership communicator. To be heard, really heard, leaders need to speak in 3 dimensions: personal, future, and story. Personal. All communication is personal. Whether or not you're ordering office supplies or describing corporate strategy, you need to be able to make a personal connection. At this moment, even through this video, I'm either connecting with you personally or I'm not. You are deciding to either let my words touch you or not. I need to make that connection with you. Leaders do this by talking about passions and principles. They do it by talking about sacrifice, loyalty, service, community, the things that speak to the part of ourselves that we hold most dear. Leaders also must speak the simple, easily recognizable truth that stands out from all the spin and positioning and half-truths that float around organizations. People are listening for that truth teller, and they'll make a personal connection with the person they believe is telling them the truth. The second dimension is the dimension of the future. The thing that distinguishes leadership communication is that all leadership communication needs to be an invitation to a tomorrow that is better than today. Think about all the great communication you hear from your leaders. The great leaders communicate about a tomorrow that is better than today in some way, and that message is woven through all of their communications. And the third dimension is story. All great leaders are storytellers. Storytelling is the oldest form of communication and continues to be the most important form today. Neuroscientists agree upon one thing. They agree that we listen, think, and organize our minds in stories. We cannot change until we have a new story to replace an existing one. The leader's job is to help us create a new, bigger story, both for us and for our organization. Many leaders simply try to create a grand story for their organizations, but this often falls on deaf ears. The leaders who really have an impact are those that create big stories, but big stories in which every one of us have a starring role. From the CEO to the receptionist, we all have a starring role. Think back on the great projects you've been part of, great organizations, great teams. It's very likely that there was a leader there who created a big story for your team, a big story for your organization, and made sure you had a starring role. So one voice, your voice, can make all the difference in the organization today. The leader's voice can be heard above the din of the crowd. We're all listening for it. We're straining to hear it. All of us who work within organizations are listening for that leader's voice. When the leader speaks, something inside us moves. It resonates with our deepest hopes and aspirations.
Okay, so every time we speak, you are auditioning to become future leaders. Okay, so this is a very powerful line because it blocks off all unintentional speaking. Okay, so negative speaking, negative talking to your coworkers, creating false stories, creating fake news. Okay, mauso-uso ngayon faking news. Creating fake news to everybody. Because every time you speak, it needs to be accurate, it needs to be truthful, it needs to have that 3 dimensions. It's a personal thing. Okay, are you telling something about on a personal level? Okay, do you want to hurt other people? Okay, ganun yung instance of having that personal level. Are you creating a better picture of a better future for the one you're talking to? Even if it's a small group, okay? Even if you're just an intern, hindi wala naman ako in the position. You do not, as based on our leadership lecture last Tuesday, you don't need to be in a position to become a leader. Leadership should be inside every one of us, okay? We need to be able to inspire people through our communication, okay? And last is, are we able to tell a story where everybody has an important role to play? Okay. Hindi kayo, ito yung communication na kayo yung bida. Dapat we need to remove that. Instead of an I communication, we need to communicate as a we. How can we progress? In our small team of interns, we are 5 interns in the group. How can we start improving things? How can we start to learn? Okay. So it's more of a we tone than how can I progress better than the others. Okay, so dapat you see the difference. Hopefully, you guys can see the difference. Okay, in the way and the tone of communication. Okay, so when we're talking about leadership and communication, okay, leaders have to communicate a goal, a clear vision, okay, to his team, okay, for them to be motivated, and that goal, okay, so in the creating a better future or envisioning a better future, okay, in that goal, everybody should play a role. Wala kayong sinasabi, oh, diyan ka lang ha, salikit ka lang. Everybody, even the smallest person in the team, should play a role. Okay. How will this impact how we communicate? Okay. We see in a lot of our in a lot of interns, not only from our school but a lot of interns, that they feel after they graduate, they are empowered. Okay, they are better than the rest. They are better than dishwashers who never studied anything, never studied culinary. Okay, so they think that they are heroes in their own story. Na all the other people that they're working with are there to support him. Okay? So yun yung mindset nila. Okay? In our small kitchen, okay, in our small kitchen o in the main campus. Okay? How many of you take or respect our dishwashers? Okay, our cleaners. Okay? Or you see them as people na dishwasher lang yan. Okay? So you are belittling people that don't have the same education or experience as you guys. Okay, so you can see it in their tone, you can see it in your body language. Okay, if you are not communicating as a leader should be. Okay. Okay, so leadership communication is a skill, okay, that you guys can learn. Okay, it's a way to clearly connect to the other people that you will be working with. Okay, not only within your level but also higher levels. How do you communicate to higher level, to your superior, to your bosses, to the owners? Okay, so leaders must know this skill of effective communication. Okay, and he knows that there are different styles of communication that he needs to understand. Okay? Kasi it's not, since it's a skill, he knows that he needs to understand how communication works. And he knows that he needs to practice it. Similar to your knife skills, similar to your cooking skills. Kahit ituro namin yan sa inyo, if hindi nyo i-practice, makakalimutan nyo yan. Okay? How to, di ba, yung assignment from way back. Okay, how to tournay vegetables. Since you haven't been tournaying vegetables, your potatoes, your carrots, if you tournay something now, probably hindi siya kasing ganda nung as before. So you don't practice it. So same with communication. Leadership communication, or effective communication is a skill that you guys can learn, but you need to practice it. And you need to understand the components of it before you can embody it, okay? Before it becomes second nature, okay? So, for us to understand communication in a better way, these are 4 ways or 4 styles of communication that you can see in the workplace.
Hey everyone, Daniel here from Next Level Life, and today I'm going to be talking about the 4 styles of communication, as well as their strengths and weaknesses, and I'll also be giving examples on how to tailor what you say to better resonate with the people of each of the communication styles. Now, we all use many styles of communication, of course, but most of us haven't spent much time thinking about which one we use the most and whether or not it's actually been effective for us. Have you ever had one of those moments in school or at a business meeting or even just talking to a friend when you can tell that their attention is somewhere else? Or maybe the person you're talking to is even impatiently tapping their fingers on the table or rolling their eyes. And that's extremely rude. So why do some people do it? Well, it's possible that the style of communication you were using at the time just wasn't right for that particular person or situation. And my hope is that after watching this video, you'll be able to better pinpoint why that may be, as well as have some ideas on how to fix it in the future. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. The first style of communication is known as analytical communication. Analytical communicators generally like hard data and tend to be a little suspicious of people who don't have real numbers to back up their statements. For example, if someone from an analytical communicator's corporate office was giving a presentation and said something like, "Hey, sales are positive this quarter," the analytical communicator would be asking themselves questions such as, well, what exactly does positive mean? Is that 1%, 5%, 10%? Give me a number. So if you're talking to an analytical communicator, how can you best capture their attention? Simple. Phrase your thought in a way that best resonates with them. Instead of saying, "Hey, sales are positive this quarter," say something like, "Our sales figures have seen an 8% increase over the last quarter." Not only will that capture their attention, but it'll also cut out all that internal noise they experienced when asking themselves, "Hey, what does positive mean?" in that previous example. And as a result, they're much more likely to hear and remember whatever it is you say next. Analytical communicators also tend to avoid using emotional words in conversation. Again, they're very data-driven. On the plus side, these people are generally perceived to have high levels of informational intelligence, but on the downside, they can come off as a little bit cold, unfeeling, and almost robotic in some situations. So you may want to avoid using this style of communication when talking with people who tend to have a more personal style of communication. However, in situations such as a meeting to determine whether or not a certain product or marketing campaign is going well, this style would work out perfectly. The second style of communication is known as personal communication. And unlike analytical communicators, personal communicators tend to value emotional language, and they often try to use this language to build relationships with others and find out what they're really thinking, or perhaps more importantly, feeling. These communicators tend to be good listeners, in addition to being good at smoothing over conflicts. And going back to that previous example of a member from the corporate office giving a presentation on recent sales trends, the personal communicator would be paying attention to their coworkers' reactions to what the speaker is saying, just as much, if not more so, than to what the speaker is actually saying themselves. So how can the speaker tailor their speech to better resonate with this listener? Simply add in some emotional language to your speech. Again, instead of saying, "Hey, sales are positive this quarter," and leaving it at that, smile and say something like, "Hey guys, you've really made me proud. Sales are positive this quarter, and that's the first time in 3 years we've done that. And it's all thanks to your guys' hard work. And I honestly don't really have any critiques that I can give you. You all did a fantastic job. So instead of me lecturing you for the next 20 minutes, I was wondering, could we make this presentation a little more interactive? I was wondering if any of you had ideas for the next quarter that you'd like to try out, or if there's anything that's been hindering you here at work that I can help you with." This not only makes the speaker sound more personal and inviting, but it also may boost the pride that the employees have in their work. And that effect of seeing your coworkers sitting up a little straighter, maybe even puffing out their chests as if to say, "Yeah, you darn right we did good," that'll definitely catch the personal communicator's attention, as well as make them feel a lot better about the work themselves. Because again, personal communicators are generally very relationship focused. They're great at listening, they're great at solving problems in a diplomatic manner, and sort of being that glue that holds the groups together. The potential downside of using this style of communication is it can come off as a little too touchy-feely in some situations, particularly when you're dealing with people who are analytical communicators. The third style of communication is intuitive communication. Intuitive communicators generally like to focus on the big picture. They avoid getting bogged down in details and cut right to the chase. In addition to that, intuitive communicators often don't talk in an orderly or step-by-step manner when explaining things. They may give you a few details or steps initially, but oftentimes they'll jump right to the final step or the ultimate goal of the process. The upsides and downsides to this style of communication are actually pretty obvious. On the plus side, these people are going to get right to the chase and they're going to get stuff done. They'll never spend hours trying to figure out every step of the process before starting it, and as a result, they generally procrastinate less. However, this tendency can sometimes lead to the person jumping into a situation that really does require you getting into the nitty-gritty details too quickly, and thus they fail to get the desired outcome as a result. Also, while these people tend to get a lot done, they often aren't the best teachers due to their tendency to skip steps in the process which would only serve to confuse new workers. In my experience, though I can't speak for everyone here, this style of communication seems to be particularly popular among bosses. So it's important to understand how to best give them the information that they need in a way that resonates with them. For example, if you're giving a presentation to your boss who's primarily an intuitive communicator on the 5 recommendations you've come up with for, say, improving customer experience on your company's website, the last thing you'd want to do is to say something like this. Alright, my first recommendation is to revamp our sales funnel in order to take a consultative approach to the sales process. Instead, we should create 2 sales funnels, both distinct from each other, that will sort the customers based on their current familiarity with our products. Regular customers can go straight to the shopping cart, while first-time customers will be redirected to a custom FAQ page relating to the products they're looking at. My second recommendation is to employ customer service surveys and have constant communication between our customer service department and our tech team. And in the interest of time, I'm going to stop right there, because at this point, your boss's head is probably already exploding, and the speaker's only on the second recommendation. Thank God he only has 5, right? A better way to get this information to an intuitive communicator is to cut right to the chase like this. Hey boss, I have 5 recommendations to improve customer experience on our website. Number 1, take a consultative approach. Number 2, use customer surveys. Number 3, interview users. Number 4, implement responsive web design. And number 5, make it more social. Please tell me which one of the ideas you want to hear more about. It's actually quite amazing how much of a difference this simple act of changing how you phrase things makes. The boss that used to seem so impatient is suddenly responsive, and they start developing a sort of trust in you because you're showing them that you can deliver the results the boss wants in the way that they want it. And finally, the 4th style of communication is functional communication. Functional communicators are very different from intuitive communicators in the sense that they actually like going through the full process and thinking through each of the details in a step-by-step fashion. On the plus side, these people will generally not miss anything major when formulating or implementing plans, but they do tend to have a harder time holding people's attention, especially if the people are intuitive communicators, due to the functional communicator's somewhat long-winded style of communication. In the previous example about presenting 5 ideas to improve customer service on your company's website, the best way to present ideas to a functional communicator is to go through all the details of each idea. Going through the entire process of each idea will actually increase the functional communicator's comfort with whichever ideas they feel are good ones, and they'll be much more likely to follow through with them down the road. So which communication style do you use most? Let me know in the comments section below, and be sure to subscribe for more videos like this, as well as videos on how to be more productive and how to make money online. Thank you.
Okay, so in terms of the communication style, there are 4 types of communication. Okay, so you have your personal, you have your intuitive, you have your functional, and you have your analytical. Okay, so depending on who you're talking to, okay, you need to change your communication style. Kasi not all can appreciate all the data, and analyze all the data. Okay? Not all can see the bigger picture through the person, intuitive way of communicating. And not some would appreciate a more functional approach. Okay, where you can detail every step. And then some would like to have a personal communication, meaning how does it affect them? Okay, so dapat you adjust your communication style based on who you're talking to. Okay, so in terms of adjusting your style, in terms of leadership communication, okay, those are the different styles. But what are the skills that you guys need to learn to be able to communicate properly? Okay, so medyo marami-rami tayong listing today. Okay, this is closely related to the skill of communication. Okay, if you can see that number 1 listed is active listening. To be a good communicator, usually ang understanding natin of communicators are those who have a bigger voice. Yung mas malalim, mas malaki yung boses. Okay, but for those na may mga maliliit na boses, maliliit na tao, maliliit na babae, yung lahat maliit na saliit, very petite yung voice. Hindi naman ako napapakinggan. Okay? So it doesn't reflect yung size. You can be a big guy having a big voice, pero you're not communicating effectively. Okay? Or you can have a very small and petite voice, pero you can touch everybody in the team on a deeper level. You are effectively communicating more. Okay? These are the skills that you guys need to effectively communicate and effectively communicate as a leader. Okay, number one is active listening. Okay, so this is different from hearing. Active listening, we've already had a discussion with active listening before. You need to be good storytellers. Okay, in terms of our history, okay, stories are the ones being passed from one generation to the other. Hindi yung small conversations, hindi yung pick-up lines. Okay, it's the stories. These are the stories that would stay in our minds. You need to be able to adapt to the different situations and the different receivers. Okay, and then you need to be able to motivate your receiver or the one you're talking to. Okay, we will discuss each one in detail. Okay, let's now okay, before we go into the details of each one, okay, I'll let you watch first how legendary speakers speak. So, di ba nga from our discussion yesterday, to become an effective leader, you need to learn from previous leaders. Okay? So now, we will learn how legendary leaders, yung mga good communicators speak. Okay? What are their traits? And then how can we learn from them?
Hi, this is Robin Sharma, author of The Leader Who Had No Title, founder of the Titan Academy, and welcome to this mastery session called How Legendary Leaders Speak. So this is what I call a gargantuan opportunity for you to out-communicate, out-connect with, out-influence everyone in your marketplace. The reality is, and I've been working with senior leaders across the planet for well over 20 years, most leaders, most business people, most entrepreneurs, most human beings have never learned to be masterful communicators. And the very nature of influence and impact, which is the leader's job, is communication. I mean, in school, were you given a communication course? Very few people have been taught that. In your personal relationships, have you read books on communication? Well, that leads to, in an intimate relationship, or even just with a friend, it's the little miscommunications that over time stack into loss. In your intimate relationships, it's the little conversations that you could have had in 5 minutes if you had the tools to communicate and the awareness to speak. So literally, you could release the anger and build understanding and speak out your needs and feel the need to be heard. All those little things, if you had learned how to do that over and done it in 5 minutes with your intimate partner, you might not have lost the relationship. And in your professional life, learning to communicate inspires your teammates. You know, if you look at the great leaders of humanity, the Nelson Mandelas, the Mother Teresa's, the Martin Luther King Jr.'s, the John F. Kennedys, if you look at the great business builders, Steve Jobs, great example, right? He would be on the stage at the product launch, and then that favorite line, one more thing, and that's when he would reveal the latest piece of technology that would create industry dominance when Steve Jobs was at Apple. Well, he was a masterful communicator, and Bud Tribble over at Apple called it his reality distortion field. Steve Jobs was a master salesman. He knew exactly what to say to get people to believe in the impossible, to allow their I can't to be less valuable than their I can. So, point number one, or insight number one, to be a world-class communicator and a legendary leader in terms of your influence is precision of languaging. Spend a lot of time on airplanes, you probably do as well. I was on an aircraft last weekend, and here's what I heard someone say. The flight attendant walked down through the cabin and said to one of the passengers, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't ask to hang up your coat." And here's what the reply from the gentleman was. "Oh, don't be silly. Don't be silly." And the way that landed on me was, I know he was trying to be gracious, but he literally told someone that they were silly. And I see this everywhere. Someone very close to me who was a little sloppy with her languaging said, "Oh, I forgot to do this. Punch myself in the face." And I very lovingly said, "Can I offer an insight? Look at the words you just used." Think about that. Here's someone saying, "Oh, I forgot to do this. It's not on my to-do list. I should punch myself in the face." If you say that every day, what's that doing to your self-esteem? If you say that over a lifetime, what's that doing to your self-identity? And as you know, if you followed me on previous episodes, your income is a function of your self-identity. And your performance is a reflection of your personal story. And the way you build your self-architecture and the way you see yourself in the world is in part through your words. You're never going to rise any higher in terms of your impact in the world than the way you see yourself. If you see yourself as average, well, you're not going to read the books, go to the events, do the study, put in the training time, find the mentors, do the work to rise to world class, because you're running an interior psychological story that says you're average and the A players are somehow different from you. If deep down inside you're coming from scarcity and you think, you know what, I'll never have more than the salary that I'm making because of the story that you have through the words you've used, well, then you're not going to go out there and ask for the big order. You're not going to go start the big business. You're not going to read the books on financial mastery, because deep inside you would say, what would be the point? I'm not one of those people. And if you want to rewire your self-identity, so you go out in the world and you're literally operating at legendary, then you absolutely must dial into this first point of what legendary leaders do in terms of the way they speak, which is get your precision of languaging right. I'm no master. I'm not perfect. I'm flawed. I'm a human being. But one thing I get right is I'm very calibrated about the words I use. Because like I say, the great leaders, how did they transform humanity? It was through their words. How did the great military generals get their armies to go out there on fire? It was through their words. Words can free nations, and as we know from history, words from evil leaders have destroyed humanity, caused brutality. Words are that powerful. They not only affect your interior psychology and your identity, they have a profound impact on the world around you. So I don't call autumn fall. I don't want to say we're going to have a great fall, because I don't want to affect and influence my subconscious to say to my team, hey, we're going to have a great fall, because they're going to go, okay, got it. But subconsciously, that's suggesting a fall, a failure. So I said, we're going to have an awesome autumn. I can't wait to execute on our deliverables and our big five for the next 3 months. When I communicate with my children, I'm so careful, because one phrase spoken to a child could set up a wound and a limiting belief that destroys the potential over the course of a lifetime. A little kid is singing and you say, shut up. You know, your voice is terrible. That could set up a core belief and an emotional wound so that they never sing again. You say to your child in a moment of frustration and irritation because you haven't worked on your gracefulness within. You know, you're not very smart, or you can't do that. If you're a teacher And you say, you know what? You can never be an astronaut. You can never be an empire maker. You're not smart enough to do this. And some teacher said that to me along my journey. You'll never finish university. And just to share the reality, I not only finished university with a science degree, but I did a law degree and then a master's of law degree. And I only share that, which is I haven't had it easy. I've been put down. I've had teachers who didn't see my potential. That's just reality. You want to block out the noise and listen to the signal, which is you're built to be a possibilitarian. You're built to be great. You have genius within you. So calibrate your languaging so your words to yourself are world class. And also the words you use to your team, to your customers, to your loved ones, so incredibly important. If you look at the 95% card-carrying members of the cult of mediocrity, they're so sloppy with their languaging. Don't be silly. Punch yourself in the face. I hate that customer. This job is going to make me sick. And they repeat it over and over, and then they wonder why they have an illness 10 or 15 years down the road. Second element, in terms of how legendary leaders speak, is they're masterful listeners. Another gargantuan competitive advantage. How the great leaders do it is they're just so comfortable in their own skin. They've worked on their ego so much, they've turned down the volume. Most people's idea of listening is waiting until the other person has finished talking so they can start their own monologue. I can't tell you how many times I'll have a walk with someone. I love walking meetings, 1 hour walks. I learned it from Steve Jobs. And through the entire walk, they're just sharing their story, and they're sharing where they're at, and they're sharing their frustrations, and they're sharing their insecurities, and they haven't asked me a single question. And I'm happy to help. I'm happy to listen. Someone asked me the other night, oh, when that happens, what do you do? And I say, you know what? Most people have a deep need to be heard. And someone who talks and talks and talks and talks is generally a child who had parents who didn't give them a lot of time. And they didn't give them a lot of attention, and they certainly didn't give them very much listening. And so adults are nothing more than deteriorated children, and adults are often children in grown-up bodies, and I see that, and I simply am very happy to be a listening ear for them. I'm very happy to give them the listening they are longing for. And I just feel in that hour, I can be an instrument of service to them and helpful to them by listening. Point I'm trying to help you calibrate and hardwire in is a daily protocol. Be one of the rare few, one of the top 5% leaders on the planet who really have dialed in to listening, not from your head, but from your heart. Listening at a cellular level. And here's the thing. When you do that for your team, they grow bigger right in front of you. And the real job of a leader is to grow people. The real job of a leader is to build more leaders. The real job of a leader is to leave a blazing trail of epic producers behind you. That's when you know that you're leading versus following. So get seriously genius at listening. And that's going to take a lot of inner work. And if you're interested in how to do that, I've got Personal Mastery Academy online and Personal Mastery Academy as a live event. We will teach you at that event how to release the insecurity and fill the holes inside of you that are causing you to talk too much and have this need of approval where you have to tell people everything that's going on in your life and where you're winning. That's coming from a hole inside of you. And when you fill the hole, you experience the being and the joyfulness and the confidence and the security that is your true nature that you have actually lost because you've been hurt by life. And so you want to find the tools needed to fill those holes so that when you're in front of another human being, there's no need to fill the hole by talking and being liked and thinking people thinking you're cool. The hole is full. The wound has been healed. And so you can actually be in front of another person and listen to them. A lot of people don't teach this in leadership training and elite performance training, but I believe a lot of the reasons for toxic behavior in business are emotional. And so at my live events and my online courses and books like The Leader Who Had No Title, I actually spend chapters where I teach that. Because if you've got these holes and you're not aware of them, then you're not going to be a legendary leader. You're not going to be an epic performer. You're going to be like a little child out in the world full of these wounds, insecurities, needing approval, chasing these social statements like bigger cars, more cash, pounding your chest because your ego is so loud because you're terrified. That's the truth. You're terrified. That's why a lot of leaders, they're pounding their chest. They're so loud. It's the bigger jet. Need a new Gulfstream. Need more money. But the true heroes were different. You know what? Mahatma Gandhi, died with less than 10 possessions. Why? He didn't need possessions. He found true power versus fake power. I was in Mother Teresa's apartment, her room, at her mission. That's the correct word. Guess what I saw? One desk, one chair, and a little bed like you'd see in the most Spartan of dorm rooms. Last summer I was in Nelson Mandela's prison cell. Totally Spartan. What did I see? A wash basin, a small desk, no chair. He used to actually have to be on his knees. They wouldn't give him a chair. No bed, a concrete floor with a blanket over it. And he had to fight for the blanket. And because of his color, the color of his skin, until he fought for it, and the jailers agreed after a period of time, he wasn't even allowed trousers. And it was bitter cold on Robben Island. I was there in their winter. I felt the cold. And he only had short pants and a very thin shirt. The great heroes didn't need a lot of things because their lives were devoted to a larger cause. Number 3, in terms of the way legendary leaders speak or influence or communicate, they have a great sense of social acuity. So the person who talks too much, the person who gets too close to your social space, the person who is too demanding in a restaurant, the person who at the office is listening to their music right off their phone without having the courtesy to plug in earphones. I was at a nature walk a little while ago, and I kid you not, this is one of my favorite forests to walk in, and I love nature walks. I was in one of my favorite forests on the planet to refuel after a week of intense creativity, and there was a man who had a hard copy radio with him, and he was listening to the news. Unbelievable. He's in nature, so in his own bubble, so caught up in his own ego, in many ways so self-focused, he literally didn't think other people would be walking. And perhaps some people want to get to nature because it's solitude, and it's quiet, and it's beautiful, and it's soulful. I don't know about you, but I go out in nature, I crave it, I long for it. I come alive in nature. After I work, there's a concept I teach called the 5 great hours concept. You don't really need to work more than 5 intense world-class hours. I teach the concept at the Titan Summit and a lot of my online training and in my new book. But the larger point is, after 5 great hours of monomaniacal focus in your tight bubble of total focus, what do? I get on my mountain bike when it's autumn or summertime, and I go fly through the woods. And I kid you not, as soon as I enter the forest on my mountain bike, something in me shifts very deeply. Because fundamentally, we're all animals. We need nature. So the point is, that gentleman listening to the news with his, he could have listened to it with an earpiece, headphones. The point is, he didn't have a sense of social acuity. There's a lot of people who don't have any social understanding of their environment. And you'll see it in their body language. You'll see it in their behavior. They just don't get it. Not judging them, just reporting. Not complaining, just saying. Okay, so the legendary leaders, in terms of the way they communicate, they're very aware of, oh, that person looks bored. Maybe I'm not sharing something interesting. Oh, this is enough time in this meeting. Oh, my salespeople don't feel very inspired right now. I'm picking up on a vibe. Let me shift gears. The best communicators in their speeches are so viscerally, emotionally, soulfully connected to their audiences. They know when the audience is up. They know when it's down. They know when it's time for a story. They know when it's time for some tactics. Number 4. Legendary leaders are terrifyingly transparent. Terrifyingly. They literally are so clear about who they are. They'll say, here are the sales numbers. Here's what's going on for me. The great CEOs I've worked with that I've coached one-on-one, I've helped them become so transparent with their teams that their teams fall in love with them. If you look at the great military generals, I think it was Alexander the Great, he was facing, people were saying, we're not going to do this. We're not going to go on this next military campaign. We have lost our trust in you. We are exhausted. We are starving. We want to go home and we want to be with our families. You know what Alexander the Great did? He said, fine. All his men were looking at him. He stripped off his shirt. And you know what he did? He showed his scarred body. And the men looked at the scars, and they were horrified. And then he turned around, and they were even more terrified because they saw that every scar on their great leader's scar-ridden, wound-filled body was at the front. He never turned his back to the enemy, and he was there fighting with him. And the men felt this incredible love for him. Because when you are vulnerable, people will fall in love with you. When you are transparent, people will say, she's not a salesman in a world of salespeople. One of your winning advantages is your authenticity in a world of so much superficiality. Be real. Say to your team, say to your intimate partner, share with your kids, this is who I am. This is the life I've lived. With my children, we recently had a conversation over this big wooden harvest table and a great cup of Italian coffee. You know my love of Italy. You know my love of coffee. By the way, another episode, but it's a great cognitive enhancer, and it's one of nature's top antioxidants. Please don't knock coffee. Key point is, with my children, I shared my life's journey. I shared my failures. I shared my insecurities. I shared my limitations. You want to be a fly on the wall for that conversation between me and my two children. Now you want to be appropriate. My children are older, so that was a very appropriate conversation at this age that they're at. The key point is transparency wins as a legendary leader. Point number 5, legendary leaders communicate with compelling courage. The conversation you are most resisting, and I write a lot about this, there's a whole chapter on it in The Leader Who Had No Title, in my book that I wrote over 20 years ago, Leadership Wisdom from the Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. So if you're interested in going deeper, you can read those books. I also wrote about it in a book I wrote a long time ago called The Greatness Guide. The point is, the conversation you are most resisting is the conversation you need to have now. You are giving away your power to that conversation you need to have that you're not doing because you're too scared. How do you get your power back? You go have the conversation, and guess what? Here's what I found 9 times out of 10. The conversation you're so scared to have with that teammate, that supplier, that top client, that loved one, when you have the conversation, boom, it's like a balloon being released, the pressure being released. You just feel fundamentally different after you've spoken your anger in a respectful way. Again, we're not taught to do this. You can speak whatever you want so long as you learn how to say it with respect. Don't rage at the person. Don't dump at the person. That intimate partner is not your therapist. That teammate, you've got to speak to them with respect. They deserve it. But you can speak what you want as long as you learn to language it with respect. But we're not taught this. We're not skilled at this. So we minimize people inadvertently. Most of us are so sloppy. We're so unaware of our languaging. Here's what you could say to your teammate. you know what, in that meeting, I want to applaud you for these things. And when you said this, this is how I felt. So you're not blaming the person. It's I language versus you language. In your intimate relationship, don't say you did that, and when you said that to me, and you didn't take out the garbage, and you didn't think about my needs, say, when I experienced this, this is how I felt. And I just wanted to share it with you because I love you and because I believe in our relationship. When you do that, you protect yourself, you fortify yourself, you feel phenomenal, you release the pressure, you don't carry it so it doesn't freeze into anger or disappointment that blows up inevitably down the road professionally and personally. Instead, you release it. You're clear. You're not carrying that anger or frustration or sadness in that relationship. And here's the great thing, the beautiful thing, the gorgeous insight. The other person trusts you more. The other person, 9 times out of 10, actually says, thank you for being so honest. They start to realize how honest you are. It builds trust. In business, trust is the alchemy of mastery. Incredible, right? You're honest, you feel better. They realize how honest you are. They trust you more. And here's the great thing, they even respect you more. Because most people don't do this. So, have the courage. Let me put it to you this way. I was in my hometown, Halifax, Nova Scotia, east coast of Canada. I'm a small town human being. Come from very humble beginnings. No silver spoon in my mouth. And I remember being in Halifax, Nova Scotia, near Dalhousie University, where I went to law school. And a car drives by. And there's a bumper sticker on the bumper, and it said, speak your truth even when your voice shakes. Hope I've been of service to you. Hope this has been helpful to you. Hope this episode has been a needle mover for you on your rise to becoming a legendary leader and an A player in every single thing you do. And I think there's been a lot of information I've shared with you over a lot of experience with working with senior leaders and from my own life in terms of communication in your personal relationships. If you've loved this episode, if I've served you well, if I've done my job, then please share this episode over the next 60 minutes. All I ask, share the episode over the next 60 minutes with your team, with your friends.
Okay, so there are so many learnings from this simple clip on how legendary leaders would speak. Okay, so let's go back to our discussion. Okay, let's go back to our module, our presentation. Okay, so let's go one by one to highlight all the different skills of a good leadership communicator. Okay, so first one is, as mentioned also in the video, okay, is active listening. Okay, active listening, we've already discussed this. The main objective of active listening is giving the other person your 100% attention. Okay? And then comprehending what they are saying. Trying to decipher and understand the message, and trying to rebuild the message so that you can easily memorize it. Okay? So trying to feel that the other people are understood. Okay, so you're trying always to understand not only the message but also where they're coming from. Bakit ba nagagalit siya pag ginagawa ko to? Ano ba yung pala yung culture niya, bawal pala yung ganito in their culture. In their hometown, in their traditionally, they don't mix these two things. Okay, so or even the tone of voice. Ganun lang pala talaga mga Sino ba yung mga Bisaya? Medyo parang galit, pero hindi pala sila galit. So you need to
Para ma-picture.
understand not only the message, but also the overall communication, verbal and non-verbal. Okay, you are trying to understand where they're coming from. Trying to understand the feelings and the emotion that they are trying to relate to you. So that's part of active listening. Okay, so the number one task of a good listener talaga is to learn how to actively listen. Okay, next, when it's their time to tell a message, communicate something, they usually communicate it using a storytelling timeline. So parang you give them the start, the backgrounder, ito kasi yung this is where we are coming from. Okay? And then this is yung end. So in between, it's a story. Hindi kayo tumatalon from one chapter to the other. Okay? It needs to be a single storyline para people, the person that you're talking to can understand, okay, from here to here, ito yung na-experience. And this is the whole communication. So you're not only showing them the current status, but you're also showing them the future. Okay, so di ba nga sabi dun sa first video natin, it's something personal. So it's a story. Okay, and then you are telling them you're the future. Okay, so nandun yung where you want to bring them. Okay, so that's part of the skills of a storyteller. Hindi yung, ito madalas na naririnig, yung sasabihin lang nila yung dulo. Yung, basta lutuin mo na yan, okay na yan. Parang how can you communicate properly? Diba? Or yung mga, hindi, sige, ako na bahala. Sige, basta gawin mo lang yung dulo, okay? Basta lutuin mo lang yan. Ako na bahala. But they don't see the big picture. Okay? As compared to somebody of, okay, lutuin yan kasi kailangan ko yan kapag garnish natin yan on top. Okay, you need to melt it. So there's a flow. Okay? You also give that person a glimpse of the bigger picture. Hindi yung lutuin mo lang, ako na bahala. Okay, so yan yung difference in communication. You are not communicating with your superiors, but you're communicating with your coworkers. Diba? Ganun yan if you're working as a team. Okay? So you need to be able to articulate properly. Okay? Yung ginagawa mo, imimix natin yan here, and then kukunin natin from the other team, and then this is yung final thing. So you give that the person that you're talking to a bigger picture of what he is doing and how important his task is to the bigger picture, to the bigger goal, to the bigger vision. Okay? Hindi yung basta magputol ka lang na magputol. Okay? Parang ano yung sense ng ginagawa niya. Okay? So you're losing that vision, that goal. So you need to tell your message in a storytelling pattern. Okay? Always have your start, where you're coming from, and your objective, and your vision. What's the final goal? A good leader, okay, should be able to adapt his or her communication styles, okay, based on who they're talking to. Okay? So, iba-iba. In the team, you will be communicating to different people differently. Okay? May iba sobrang close. Okay? Parang ikindatan lang, naiintindihan nyo na. May iba naman na kailangan mo i-explain in detail kasi that's how they learn. Okay? So, hindi pwedeng sabihin na, ba't siya naiintindihan na ikaw hindi? Okay? Because each person will have their own different way of understanding and learning. Okay? So, you need to be able to adjust. Okay? Some superiors, okay, sabi nga doon sa kaninang clip, di ba? If you already know how to solve it, pero hindi ka in the position, okay? Huwag mo sasabihin sa superior, boss, ganito kailangan natin gawin. Okay? Okay? We need to do this. Chef, this is how we need to do it. If you have that tone and you're talking to your executive chef, okay, you will be clashing on a personal and an emotional level. You are clashing in terms of position. Okay? So you need to change and adapt your message. Okay? Even if you already know parang there's a possible solution na you already know how to solve a certain problem. And you know that you're talking to your superior, you need to change your tone of voice and your communication and your language. Okay, chef, this is what I thought of. This is another option. What do you think? How would you want us to solve this? You are still giving the your executive chef the proper respect. You are still giving your superior the chance to decide. Okay. Now he is playing an important role kasi he is deciding. If it doesn't go into your decision, yeah, chef, um, this is okay. We're doing plan B. Okay, but with plan B, these are the pros and cons. Plan C, these are the pros and cons. Okay, so you need to adjust, okay, your way of communicating depending on the situation, depending on who you're talking to, depending on the message. This is something that good leaders, okay, would be doing on a constant basis. Hindi sila nagsasalita based dun sa first thing na naisip nila. Okay? They always need to think of the consequences of the language that they are using when they're communicating. If I say this in this tone, ito yung pwede mangyari. Baka ma-offend ko siya. If I say this and with a softer tone, baka mas may chance na pumayag siya. Okay? If I see that my executive chef, okay, na medyo mainit ang ulo, I will not talk to them, giving him more stress. I will wait for him to just smile a bit, and then instead of giving them problems, I would communicate possible solutions already, okay, to a problem na hindi pa na nade-detect. So you need to be able to adapt your communication based on situation, who you're talking to, and the message. A good leader can communicate motivation. Hindi sila taga-utos. Okay? So, hindi kayo mag-uutos. Gawin mo yan. Basta gawin mo na lang yung gawin. Okay? There's a difference. Okay? I see this even in your hands-on. Okay? May ibang tao na ako na lang gagawa. Okay? You're not motivating other people to learn. You're not inspiring other people. You're not pushing them to try. Okay? Kasi kayo lang gumagawa. Okay? Kasi gusto ko matuto. Yeah, but you can also learn when you start teaching others how to do it. Okay? It's actually easier to learn if you are the ones teaching. Okay? So you're motivating people through your communication. A good leader, okay, should also be open-minded. Okay? Hindi kayo magbebenta ng insurance. Okay? But open-minded meaning they are open to suggestions and recommendations. It's part of active listening actually. Okay? Your open-mindedness will allow you to hear and empathize and feel and see what the other people would see in given their perspective. Okay? It will help you fully understand the problem. It will help you to fully understand the possible pros and cons of a given situation, okay, or a given solution. And it will give you a better understanding on how you will approach your communication. Okay? How you will be choosing your words, choosing your language, choosing your tone. Okay? So marami kayo iniisip. Okay? But the skill needs to be parang second nature. Okay? Hindi siya pwedeng, ito sabi ni Chef, ito nagagawin ko. Ang tagal. Okay? It needs to be instant. Okay? And then for this to be instant, you need to keep practicing it. Okay? Empathic. Okay, dapat you are trying to feel the other person. Saan ba siya nagagaling? Kausap ko senior. Okay, paano ba mag-isip ang senior? Paano ba sila mag-decide? Ang senior gusto nila lagi silang parte ng conversation. They want to have a say. They want to have a decision. Okay, so how can I make the senior management, be part of the decision kahit alam ko na paano isolve? Okay, so you need to be able to get not only the message, but try to receive the feelings and look at the situation from the other's perspective. Okay, this is also a practice of transparency. Okay, meaning you are transparent with your feelings. Wala kayong tinatago, hindi ka nagpapanggap in terms of, oo ka na oo, pero deep inside, galit na galit ka pala sa kausap. Okay? Okay, delegation. We've discussed this in the previous module. Okay, delegation. A leader should know the strengths and weaknesses of other people in the team. Okay, and use that to be able to delegate even the communication. Okay, so may mga tao in our team na one or two words, they already know the entire gist of your message. Okay, there are some na kailangan mo i-detail, i-drawing, isulat so that they can memorize the message, or else there will be a gap in communication. May miscommunication ka na kagad. Okay? So there are some na kailangan detail, there are some na kailangan but through imagination. They can already pick up. Okay? It's all about skills and strengths and weaknesses. So they need to be able to adapt, and then using that adaptation, okay, be able to delegate properly. Okay? So delegate tasks, delegate messages, delegate communication to the different person based on how they know the other person's strengths and weaknesses. A good leader should always communicate positivity. If you start doubting, siguro di naman tayo kikita. Bakit pa kayo nandyan? Siguro di naman tayo it's always negative. Diba? Try working with somebody who's always negative. And then every day you come, you will have a negative vibe going to work. Parang drag mo na lang yung sarili mo every time. Okay? But if you have your team, your leaders, your team heads, having a positive, excited na ako next week, and ito. Ang sarap ng gagawin natin. Ang sarap ng sana maraming tao. Okay? Having that positive vibe, it inspires other people to look at the same problem or the same challenges in the same light. Okay? You also need to be self-aware. Okay? So awareness of your own strengths and weaknesses. Okay, sometimes hindi ka masyado magaling in pastry. Okay, hindi yung panglasa mo hindi masyado maganda sa sweet. Okay, so you need to communicate that to other people. Okay, sometimes there's a tendency na if mainit ulo mo, you choose the wrong language, you choose the wrong words. Okay, so you know how to control it. Okay, so if nasa-stress ka na, nape-pressure ka na, and everybody's trying to gang up on you, close on you, what can you do to relieve yourself of the stress and pressure? Okay, you need to know how to control your stress. Okay, hindi ka na lang pwede pumotok na lang isang beses yan na kitchen and magsisigaw ka. So you need to be able to be aware of your level, your limits, okay, your restrictions, so that it doesn't affect the way you communicate. Okay. Okay, now, let's do some exercises on speaking. Okay, how to speak like a leader.
Leaders speak differently than the average individual contributor. We're going to look at 4 ways that leaders talk differently. I'm Alex Lyon, and I'm here to provide communication tips to help you increase your impact and lead your teams with more excellence. Today we're talking about how leaders communicate. And we're going to talk about 4 ways that leaders speak differently than the average employee or average member of an organization. The first way is that leaders are really concise. They figure out what they want to say, and they say it in about 1 or 2 sentences. The advantage to this is that, first of all, it sounds really confident. When you're able to express yourself really clearly like that, it sounds like, wow, they really know what they think. The second advantage is that when they say something concrete, it's much more likely to land and people are able to understand it and then react to it, hopefully positively, but at least they're given something concrete that they can hear and then respond to. So you want to make sure you're concise. The second thing is that leaders are able to speak outside of their own area of expertise, and they're able to articulate the value of other areas of expertise. For example, let's say they come out of an IT background, that's how they rose up. They're able to look at operations, at accounting, at marketing, and engineering, and so forth, and they're able to say exactly what those other areas contribute. And that's a really powerful thing. A lot of times we get pegged as individual contributors and we get pegged as closed-minded because we start making fun of even other areas, labeling, coming up with weird nicknames. It's like a little internal competition or turf war that different departments develop with others. But leaders don't tend to do that. They're able to actually, first of all, notice and learn about the other areas, and then even speak about the good value that those other areas contribute. And they are valuable. If they weren't valuable, they wouldn't be part of the organization. The third thing that leaders do differently when they speak is that they are able to speak a level above departments. So they talk about the coordination between and among departments. They talk about strategy and how those different departments are moving in the same direction toward the same goals. I'll use a metaphor of a band, a rock band. A little personal disclosure, I used to be in rock bands in high school and college, so I almost always want to go there with my analogies. Oftentimes when you're recording in the studio, you have a drummer, and that drummer wants the drums to be the loudest, and the guitar player wants the guitar to be the loudest, and the bass player wants the bass to be the loudest. That's just natural because that's their area of expertise. So what groups do is they bring in a producer who is there to help craft the overall song. Because a producer is going to listen to that song the way someone else might listen to it. Not the way a guitar player would listen to it or a drummer, but how the average person who's listening to music will bring that in. And that's what leaders do. They step above those individual departments and they're talking about the overall coordination of those different efforts. And the fourth way is that leaders are able to connect just about every single project or task that's being done to the overall business, to the overall enterprise, to the goals that that organization is trying to reach. So it doesn't matter what it is, they see how it moves the ball forward in a more general sense, and they're able to spell that out for you. And they don't always do it, in fact, they almost never do it by connecting it to some cheesy, overworked vision statement. They're going to talk about that task in relation to the real concrete goals that everybody hopefully understands. They're going to put it in plain language. If you are able to talk about the business, not just your area, now you're sounding like a leader. And by the way, when I say the phrase business, talk about the business, I'm not talking about just for-profit organizations. If you're in a nonprofit or healthcare, you're talking about the overall goals of the organization, the things that everybody is pushing toward in general, how your organization is positioned in the market against others, and so forth. So those are the four ways that leaders speak differently than individual contributors. I hope that you see it's not just a way of talking, but there's a mindset underneath that way of talking that helps them speak that way. So it's a way of thinking and a way of communicating. It's one of the reasons, by the way, I created Communication Coach. I call people like you, people who are watching, rising leaders. Maybe you're a team leader, frontline supervisor, frontline manager, and you're trying to increase your communication skills so that you can lead your teams with more excellence. That's why the channel is here. So maybe you have thought of or have heard over the years different ways that you've noticed that leaders communicate and how they come across in their own way that distinguishes them from the average person. I encourage you, if that's the case, put your own comments and questions and thoughts below, your own opinions on the four.
Okay, as part of communication, okay, we're not only talking about verbal communication, okay? This is also something that you guys need to be mindful of, non-verbal communication, okay? As leaders, okay, you know how to effectively communicate, but you also need to know that to be effective, you need to take control of your non-verbal communication. And that includes facial expressions, actions, body language, Okay, so this one is also a skill that you guys need to practice. It's the same as cooking. Okay, you need to practice it. You need to watch yourself do it. Okay, how you stand up, how you make eye contact, how you touch your hair, touch your face, how you tuck your arms. Okay, how you sit down. Okay, these are indications of communication indicators. Okay, it will show a big difference. If somebody's sitting down, if in a group, okay, bakit automatic for us na alam natin, siya siguro yung boss. Okay, without anybody talking, malalaman natin, siguro siya yung boss. Okay, kahit na they come in casual attire, parang, okay, siya yung siguro head. Kasi they assume that vibe because of their non-verbal gestures. Okay, so we need to master this. Okay, it helps if we guys understand our own body language. Kasi during interviews pa lang, alam mo kagad na parang, okay, itong taon to is born to be successful. And some are born na parang freeloaders lang. Parang, okay lang, parang di ako naniniwala. It's the same goes when we're doing interviews. Okay, when we're doing a lot of interviews, kahit na Zoom makikita mo, parang, hindi ako makampante sa kanya, hindi ko siya mapagkatiwala. I don't trust this person. I think this person just wants to travel but not really, he's not the type na dedicated to the work. Okay? He just wants to experience yung travel. Okay? Or he's only focused on the monetary compensation but not really the job. Okay? So you need to be experts in terms of controlling your own body language. So this is a guide on how leaders would manage their own body language.
Welcome back to AM Northwest. Here to test our skills at reading the body language of leaders, we're happy to welcome back the author of Human Lie Detection and Body Language 101, and that's, of course, Vanessa Van Edwards. Nice to see you.
Hi.
And the premise here is that leaders carry themselves in a different way. I guess you would have to say that they're natural leaders because this is intrinsic to them, right?
You know that we all know that person when they walk into the room. It's like they have this magnetism.
Right.
You know, everyone turns to look at them. We have that person who just is a natural born leader. And actually, the research shows that intuitively we pick up on someone's ability to lead. There was a fascinating study that actually had people look at pictures of Fortune 500 CEOs. And they could pick out, just by looking at their picture, who was the most profitable on the list.
Well, is it their body language or what they were wearing?
It's about levels of testosterone,
Okay.
How they carry themselves, how they hold their face, and then, of course, how they interact with people. So today I wanted to talk about a couple of different cues that you can do if you want to be more powerful, if you want to be a leader, and also how to spot the leader in the room if you're not quite sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
who's
well,
sort of that.
we're sure because he wears a shirt says I'm in charge. But okay. All right, so give us a quiz. We'll see if we'll
Sure.
get it.
Okay, so here's question number 1 for you, and I hope that people at home can play along too. 1, what do leaders do? A, smile more, or B, smile less?
Smile less.
I would think that they smile more
I would think
because
they
they're
smile less.
engaging and they're charming and hey, how are they win you over, right?
Right, so actually leaders smile less, but it's very common that people think they smile more. So smiling is actually a subordinate behavior. So women from a young age are taught, if you're nervous, just smile.
Right.
Or if you-
And if you don't smile, someone says, "Why aren't you smiling?"
Right,
Yeah,
you don't
girls
look
are
happy.
expected-
Why
girls
do you
are
look
always
happy?
expected to smile.
It's actually an appeasement behavior. We do it to sort of connect with people, but actually, if you're in a room, you'll notice the boss will be the one who's not smiling, and everyone around him or her will be smiling at him or her. So it's an interesting way to notice
Interesting.
that that's actually a submissive behavior.
All right. very
Yeah,
good.
all right, number 2.
Helen 1, Dave
Helen
0.
1. We're okay, we'll get your number up. All right, 2, what do leaders do? A, interrupt. B, don't interrupt.
I would think they interrupt.
I would say that they don't interrupt.
I would think they interrupt because they're busy.
So they interrupt, but what's interesting about this is that alphas.
By the way, I'm right. I got it.
We're tied. We're tied. So this is interesting. So an alpha is the science word for leader. An alpha is an individual in the community with the highest rank. Either they have the best physical prowess or they're the smartest. And they interrupt because when they speak, people naturally quiet down. It almost happens accidentally. You know that person when they speak, it's like everyone in the room turns to look at them. They actually have a vocal power. They kind of speak from that bass tone of confidence that everyone intuitively pays attention. So yes, they do interrupt. I don't love this, so what I do if I'm talking to a leader and they interrupt me, I'll say, gosh, I can't get a word in with you. They usually don't even realize they're doing it. And so you can joke around with a leader if you have an alpha in the office or at your home. That's what you can say to sort of cue them to not interrupt
good
you as
one.
much.
Okay.
All right, number 3. What do leaders do? Hold eye contact more, or B, hold eye contact less?
Okay.
I think-
I'd say more.
I think more too. You think of like Bill Clinton, for example. People say
Yes,
Bill Clinton
he can
made
hold
you
your
feel
eye,
like he
yeah.
was only focused on you, Monica.
So this-
But
So this is a trick question. You both have been right, because this is interesting. Leaders hold eye contact more when they're speaking to you, but they hold eye contact less when you're speaking to them.
Oh.
So have you ever been
I
at a
guess
party and you're talking to someone and they're kind of
Yeah.
wandering eyes, looking around?
Yeah.
So leaders
That's
don't.
you, Dave.
You're a wandering eye. Do you have a wandering eye, Dave? So what you can do, what I do, I like when people look at me in the eye when when I'm talking. I'll actually pause and I'll wait for them to look back at me, and then I'll continue speaking, or I'll touch their elbow slightly to get their attention. So you can actually do that with someone if they're not looking you in the eye, they're looking
Yeah.
over your head.
what's the benefit of that when you're dealing with, for people in the business realm, when you're dealing with somebody and obviously they're a leader and you're trying to accomplish something, what's the value in taking a leader out of their comfort zone or their natural zone?
So most basically, eye contact breeds trust. So you always want to get a leader to look at you because they're more likely to trust you if they're holding that deep eye gaze with you as you're explaining something. So that's why it's so important to break them out of that overhead gazing, especially at parties,
Yeah.
networking events, birthday parties. It's so annoying when people look over your shoulder. So you can
Okay.
definitely get that eye contact back. 4, what do leaders do? A, pace. B, stand still.
Oh.
Wow. Okay. I would say stand still.
I'd say I would think pace because they're thinking, and the leaders often have little time for anything, so they're always in motion.
So typically, I actually thought the same thing as you did, but actually Helen is right. So typically leaders stand still. They move very purposefully. Think of like a large bear, a grizzly bear. Bears are like the alphas of the animal kingdom. They want to conserve as much energy as possible. So leaders also tend to be the stillest in the room. They hold their shoulders back. They stand still and they observe everyone around them, whereas subordinates are typically running around them. Think of like cartoons. You always have smaller characters
Right.
running around the leader. So actually, I always say move purposely. If you're in a room and you want to show power, stand still, take a deep breath, and stand firmly planted. That actually shows power.
All right?
Wow.
We've
All right,
covered
last
quickly.
one. What do leaders do? Nod as you speak or hold their head still as they speak?
Oh, I would say hold still if they're not. I would
Is
say
this as
hold still.
they speak or you speak?
As they speak.
Oh, as they speak.
No, I would think that they hold their head still.
That's right. So nodding is actually like a bobblehead. The more you nod, the more subordinate you look. So leaders also hold their heads still, hold proudly. So the more powerful you want to be, still and proud. That's what I always say.
Interesting. Wow.
Well, that's a great thing to know. That's fascinating. All right, good. And of course, books available at all the usual places.
Okay, so even your non-verbal communication is different when you are possessing that leadership mindset. Okay, mindset pa lang to, okay? So during your interviews, during your career growth, okay, so you need to be mindful of these non-verbal communications. Okay, bakit ibang tao parang lagi, tagal ko na dito, bakit hindi ako napopromote? Bakit nauna pa ma-promote to si ganyan? Bago lang siya. These are the normal concerns of our in the culinary field. What do employers see in other people that parang they don't see in me? Okay, that's why we're including this part in your online class. That's why we're trying to build confidence in you. That's why instead of creating line cooks, we're creating future chefs. We're creating leaders. So that's the reason why we inject these modules in your online class. Kasi we don't want you to be stuck as an intern for like 5 years, or apprentice na kayo 5 years. Okay, we want you guys to grow in the business and be successful. Okay, and in order for you to be successful, is you need to think like you already own your success. Okay, so these are some simple tips on how to improve your leadership communication skills. Okay. Number one, have a purpose for your communication. Okay, you start with a purpose. Always start with a purpose. Okay, before you start speaking, analyze, think, and understand first your thought process. How would you make it a story? How would you show them the start and then give them the objectives and then show them the vision or the end goal? Okay. Next, make sure that the person that you're talking to, it can be a team member, can be a superior, can be somebody under you, fully understands your purpose and or your agenda. Okay? Explain the objectives. Bakit nyo ba ina-explain? Bakit nyo ba kila sinasabi sa kanila? Okay? Understand. You need to let them understand the message. You need to let them understand why you are communicating your message. Okay? Number 3, choose your words wisely and carefully. Okay? If you think that when you are stressed, when you are angry, when you are not in the mood, you tend to speak out from without thinking. Then, next time that you need to speak, you need to calm yourself down. Okay? You need to be able to choose your words wisely, depending on who you're talking to, depending on the situation, depending on the message. Okay, and then eliminate if you can eliminate filler words. Okay, these are filler words that can reflect that you are parang slow in thinking. Yung kasi tayo mahilig tayo sa kasi. Kasi yung ano, yan, you remove those things. Especially when you're doing your interview. Okay, ano kaya sa tingin nyo? What will your interviewer think of you if start saying, okay guys, can you cook, how can you cook paella? Kasi yung it says a lot about your confidence, it says a lot about your education, about your thought process. Okay, so there are times naman that you guys need to create some pauses in your communication. Okay, but if you can reduce it, okay, wag naman in every sentence meron kayong yung kasi yun, yung yun, parang ganun kayo magsalita, diba? Parang it loses it pulls down your confidence level. It also shows how educated and how you are as a person and as a leader. Okay? Okay, why is it important that we learn some leadership communication? Okay? When you start applying for your different kitchens, you will be conducting interviews or they will be asking you to send cover letters. Okay? It's important you guys indicate that you are good communicators and show it during the interview. Okay? So during the interview, it's the best opportunity for you guys to demonstrate how you are effective communicators. Okay? By answering in full confidence, by your body language, by your stance, by your seat, by the way you touch your face or the way your facial expression moves, your body language, the way you choose your words are all connected to leadership communication. Hindi lang tayo interview na parang interview lang tayo na kung sino-sino. Okay? Our goal is to get a job, get a position, and then grow in that position. Okay? Even in your cover letter, make sure that there are no typos, there are no running sentences. Okay? Make sure that your communication is concise and clear. Some tips and tricks on how to communicate properly. Okay, let's do first an exercise in confidence and communication.
Do you know how to be confident or how to feel powerful and capable in your professional, social, and romantic interactions? Today, I want to bust a big confidence myth. Watch on to find out more. told over and over again. Confidence. You either have it or you don't. And no one quite knows how to get it if you don't. This myth is pervasive and damaging. It destroys tiny, fragile, beautiful little buds of confidence before they can grow. And I want your confidence to grow and flourish, and I know it can. Confidence isn't something that arrives at birth. It's a skill, one that can be developed through intentional and purposeful practice. Here's how. Number 1, how to look confident. For this video, I'm going to do something a little different. We're going to start with the outside in. When it comes to confidence, sometimes it's a faster route. Let's start with your confident looks. And no, I don't mean your clothes or your hair. This tip is all about your body language. Let me ask you a question. When you walk into a networking event or office or a restaurant, do you look like a winner? This may seem like a strange question, but research from the University of British Columbia makes it clear. We innately get bigger in our bodies when we feel pride, but get smaller in our bodies when we feel defeated or ashamed. Why does this matter? Without realizing it, when we look at someone, we're trying to decide if they look more like a winner or a loser. Is someone taking up space? Do they have their head held high and their shoulders down and relaxed? Or do they look like a loser with their shoulders rolled in, their chin to their chest, and a slouched position? Without realizing it, we make snap judgments of people the moment we see them, and then put them into one of two buckets. In order to be confident, your body language must show it first. The easiest way to look like a winner is to claim our territory. Own your body and own the space around you by standing or sitting tall. Keep your arms loose by your side. Relax your shoulders down your back and open your chest. These expansive postures will show others that you're confident and sure of yourself. Be wary of low power postures like crossing your arms or turtling your shoulders to your ears, as this may signal defeat. Number 2, how to speak confidently. Now that you've learned how to look confident, let's talk about how to sound confident. When you answer the phone and when you start a new conversation, it's crucial that your voice projects confidence. But how? We make our first impression in our hello upon answering the phone. The question is your voice helping or hurting your confidence? Here at Science of People, we did a fascinating experiment on vocal power and have some incredible tips for you on how you can make your voice sound better and how to benefit from every single phone conversation. We asked participants to record themselves saying hello in 6 different ways. Normal, hello. Happy, hello. Sad, hello. Angry, hello. Power posing, hello. And normal, hello, again. We added these recordings to our website and asked our readers to tell us how much they liked or didn't like the person in the recording, just based on the hello they heard. Readers listened to each clip and selected one of the following answers. I like this person a lot, I like this person a little, or I don't like this person at all. Which version of the hello do you think was the most likable? The winner was the happy hello, of course. The data revealed that the happy recordings received significantly more approval ratings than any other hello. This is a huge finding as it shows people can hear your mood. Which variation do you think did the worst? The angry hello. Action step. Your mood affects your voice. Never, ever answer the phone in a bad mood. And if you have an important call, watch some funny YouTube videos to bring some natural smiles into your face. Number 3, does happiness equal confidence? Happiness and confidence go hand in hand. If you're curious about how to be more confident at work, one of the best ways to feel professionally confident is to have meaningfulness in your job. Do you know your company's mission? Do you know the impact of your work? When we don't know how our daily responsibilities contribute to a larger mission, we can feel disengaged or hopeless in our workplace. There is nothing worse than feeling like what you do doesn't matter. Here are some ideas to add meaning to your day. First, find out your company's mission statement, or if it's your company, create a mission statement. If your company doesn't have one, write the mission statement you think your company should have. Maybe you can even bring it up to your bosses. Second, write your own personal mission statement. Why do you do what you do? Beyond just a paycheck, who are you helping? This could be your colleagues, your team, or your clients. Put this mission statement somewhere easy to see on your desk or hang it on your cubicle wall. Lastly, make a success folder on your computer. This is a folder that contains records of accomplishments, testimonials, and any other example of your rock star status at work. If you're having a bad day, open your success folder to remind yourself of your worth. Action step. Watch all 10 ways to be happier at work to boost your day-to-day satisfaction. Number 4, how to walk confidently. Did you know your walk can project your confidence? Biomotion Lab analyzes and synthesizes biological motion patterns, a fancy way of saying they study walking and movement for patterns. Biological motion looks at how emotions and intentions can change our walk. The human visual system is highly sensitive to our motion, and without realizing it, we're capable of decoding things about people from their walk. We investigate the question of how such information is encoded in biological motion and how it can be retrieved. They apply linear methods from statistics to patterns to recognition to analysis. They use several variants to show different kinds of walks, from gender to weight to nervousness to happiness. See the differences? Interesting, right? Action step. How do you walk? Film yourself walking and see if you can slide more towards relaxed and happy. See how that changes how you feel. Number 5, find a confident role model. Confidence is easier to develop when we can watch and emulate someone in action. Do you have someone in your life who exudes confidence professionally or personally? Maybe a partner, a colleague, or a close friend. Assign them as your confidence role model. This can be a secret role model. You observe and take notes of how they interact. Or you can talk to your role model and ask them to be your mentor. There's no better compliment than telling someone their natural confidence is alluring. This can lead to multiple benefits, including you bonding with them on a deeper level, them sharing ideas on how you can up your individual confidence, and maybe even some insider tips on how they got to their own confidence levels. Not sure who to choose? Look for a role model in the workplace who embodies the following qualities: shows confidence in their leadership, isn't afraid to be unique, communicates and interacts with everyone, shows respect and concern for everyone they meet, is knowledgeable and well-rounded, has humility and shows willingness to admit mistakes, does good things outside the job. What I love about this list of qualities is that many are unexpected. Confidence comes in multiple flavors. It isn't about being the most extroverted, bubbly person in the room. Sometimes it's about empathy, humility, competence. Number 6, pump up your confidence. Are you in a funk? When we experience burnout or exhaustion, our confidence tends to dip. A fun option to ramp up your confidence is by creating different kinds of confidence playlists. This can be a Spotify playlist that gets you in a good mood, or a YouTube playlist that inspires you. Listen or watch when you're brushing your teeth, getting ready, or on your commute. Anytime you need a pump up. Want to listen to our free audio training? I would love to pump you up. Learn how to stand out from your peers with our Praiseworthy Performance free audio training. Listen right now at scienceofpeople.com/praiseworthy. Number 7, overcome imposter syndrome. For many high achievers, success comes at a price, and this price is known as imposter syndrome. This is a psychological phenomenon that causes smart, talented people to feel like a fraud, to feel undeserving of their accomplishments. Studies have found that 70% of all people feel like imposters at one time or another. This is a huge problem. Here's the most important thing to keep in mind. This is not a defect. Imposter syndrome is not a personality trait. It's a reaction to an event. Do you ever think your accomplishments are just not enough or pure luck? Do you ever worry that people will find out that you aren't worthy? This is imposter syndrome at work, and it's temporary and overcomable. When our mind and thoughts work against us, our confidence shrivels up and hides away. One way to fight imposter syndrome is with motivating self-talk. Stop feeling like a fraud with this video. On a more serious note, if you get stressed out in social settings, it's possible you may be suffering from social anxiety. Social anxiety is when you feel nervous, tense, or uncomfortable in social situations because you're worried other people are judging you. Almost everyone has experienced social anxiety at one point or another. Life is rife with moments of self-consciousness, from job interviews to first dates. We all occasionally feel nervous around other people. Unfortunately, social anxiety can become at worst debilitating, and at the very least damper our inner confidence and make it feel impossible to be social in an authentic way. The good news is there are ways to overcome your social anxiety with a treatment known as cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. I mention this here because if you're having a more serious issue with confidence, I highly recommend getting professional help. CBT is recognized as one of the most effective treatment options for social anxiety. Think about getting more help and learn more about social anxiety and how to deal in our full video. Number 8, how to spark confidence in your brain. Our thoughts dictate nearly every aspect of our existence, and if our thoughts are insecure or demotivated, it's nearly impossible to think and feel confidently about ourselves. Shad Helmstetter, author of What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, argues that we are programmed by our thoughts. Our mindset and our self-truths are the epicenter of our confidence. Self-truths, the ideas we tell ourselves, the beliefs we carry around, whether they are true or not. What are the stories you tell yourself? What are your truths? And are these factual truths or assumed truths? Many people tell themselves, I'll never be good at sports, or I'm not creative enough, or I could never own my own business. I want you to dig into these truths a bit more. Do you believe this because someone told you that you would never succeed at fill in the blank? Is there a deeper insecurity that contributes to this limiting belief? Go through 3 of your biggest limiting beliefs and do some fact checking. Where did they come from? Why? And do you want to keep them bouncing around in your head? Take ownership of the thoughts that only serve you. Number 9, limit social media consumption. We all love a good dog photo on Instagram, right? Well, surmounting research shows that social media is hurting us. The endless comparison we subject ourselves to via this technological vehicle can have lasting and harmful effects. Researcher Clarissa Silva interviewed men and women between the ages of 28 and 73 and found these crazy results. 60% of people using social media reported that it has impacted their self-esteem in a negative way. 50% reported social media having negative effects on their relationships. 80% reported that it's easier to be deceived by others through their sharing on social media. This insecurity is especially rampant in the online dating space. According to Silva, it seems that social media is creating a paradox effect, giving off the illusion of many choices while making it harder to find viable options. The paradox effect in dating is creating the illusion of having more social engagement, social capital, and popularity, but masking one's true persona. Remember, there is a big, bright world happening around you. Social media helps to stay connected and informed, but it's also important to find a balance between reality and fantasy. Want to conquer your social media? For every hour you spend on social media in the next month, spend the equivalent time with friends or family in person to balance it out. Here's the bottom line. The path to more confidence is in your hands. Confidence doesn't grow without water, fertilizer, and a little TLC. Take steps, even small ones, to up your confidence and kickstart the life you always wanted. Hey, I want to tell you one more thing. You are amazing. The question is, do you know how to share it? I'd love to help.
Okay, and our last clip, okay, hopefully this will help you during your interviews. Okay, how to talk to anybody with confidence or anyone with confidence.
Thanks for watching AM Northwest. Our next guest says she can teach us how to make dazzling conversation with anyone we meet. We welcome back the author of Human Lie Detection and Body Language 101, Vanessa Van Edwards. Now, Vanessa, I just had to pull you away from a conversation with Fabi over there.
Yes.
But for folks who have a hard time making conversation, there's a science behind having a good conversation, right?
Yeah, and the good news is the science of conversation. It can be used in any situation, whether it's professional, networking events, business meetings, colleagues, and also it's the same for social, parties, new friends, meeting in-laws for the first time. Luckily, the science is the same, whether you love conversation or you don't.
Okay, so let's talk about the first rule you say is your intention.
Yeah, and this is actually the one that we most often forget. So the best conversations and the best conversationalists, they always set the intention for the conversation. And this helps ward against, those awkward lulls or pauses.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen when you set an intention. So what I want you to think about before you meet someone, before you go to an event, is what do you want to bring from the event? What do you want to bring to the event? So are you there to get new business? Are you there to meet a significant other? Are you there just have a good time? Are you there to learn something about someone? Just setting that minor intention, I always do it on the car, no matter where I'm going, that helps you guide your conversation. For the next few tips, you'll notice you need to have sort of that guiding drive to know what you want to talk about or ask next. So set your intention before you even show up.
That's kind of like a game plan, right? Making sure you have a plan.
Exactly. It's setting up your strategy for the night. And again, it could be as simple as, I just want to laugh. I just want to have a good time, because that's going to change the direction of your conversation.
Okay, you talk about approach.
Yes. So when you think about conversation, you usually think about the first line. But research shows that our first impression doesn't happen when you first hear someone. It happens when you first see someone. So actually the best conversationalists, they almost start their conversation on the approach. So what I want you to do is anytime you're about to initiate conversation or you're about to go to someone and introduce yourself, is set yourself up right. So the best first impression happens when you have nice open body language. So you want your hands really visible, out of pockets, not tucked into your purse, not behind your back. Helps with our trust cues.
Right.
And then having your shoulders down and back. Anytime we turtle, it signifies anxiety. So shoulders down and back, and then your smile is actually your opening line. So when you smile at someone, it warms them up.
Right.
To them going, oh, this person's about to talk to me, and it gets them sort of already going. It's like your opening line a little bit, your smile.
Right, that's a good idea. And what would be a good opener?
Okay, so everyone asks me, what's a good pickup line? What's a good opening line? There was a huge research experiment that looked at almost every single pickup line, all the different ways we start conversation.
Let me guess. Would it be a compliment? First thing you say is, I like that ring or those boots or that dress.
Compliments are great, second and third. The first one is, I know this is going to sound simple. Hello, how are you?
Oh!
By far.
Yeah.
That one by far. And if you think about it, that's actually, you don't really want to say something too intense when you first start. So you have this smile, you go up, you say, hey, how are you? I'm Vanessa, whatever. And then you go into what's next. And what's the next part, so you've already introduced.
So you don't even say your name? The first
you can say, hey, how are you? I'm Vanessa.
Gotcha.
Hey, how are you? That hey, how are you? Hello, how are you? It's actually so nice because it's so easy and it's so natural. So don't think of anything crazy. Just go with what's simple.
Okay.
And then what I want you to do is look for what's called conversation sparks. So conversation sparks, this is the difference between a dazzling conversation and kind of like a meh conversation.
Right.
So conversation sparks are, the nonverbal cue is when you're engaging curiosity. When you're engaging someone to go, wow, that's really interesting. And can I teach you the nonverbal sign for sparks?
Sure.
So across cultures, across genders and races, there is one thing that everyone does when they are super engaged, and it's the eyebrow raise.
Oh.
So you just did it. Anytime someone says something interesting, we go, oh, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the topics, the conversations, the stories that make them go, oh, really?
That means they're really listening.
That means that you're not just going into boring. So what I want you to think about is you set your intention, right? So maybe your intention is to get to know your in-law better, right? So what you'd be doing is asking questions. You're trying to look for likes, mutual likes. Do you like this? Restaurants, vacations? Do we have similar hobbies that we like? And then you're looking for that, oh, I loved the baseball game last night. And then you've hit it. You've hit a spark. And then you can go down that rabbit hole in the conversation. So you're looking for the spark, the eyebrow raise, when you set that intention. That's what you're looking for the whole time.
Okay, ending a conversation. My husband and his family can never end, and I don't know how they do it, but they can never end a conversation. It's the funniest thing.
So we don't think about ending a conversation as important, but actually your last impression is just as important as your first impression. So here's what you do. Here's a really easy way. If you ever want to end a conversation, first, mention, it's called a future mention. So, hey, what are you up to this weekend? What are you doing later today? It actually shifts the focus from present to future.
Oh, yeah.
And then they talk about, oh, yeah, this weekend, I'm gonna go to the hike in Forest Park.
Right.
That's your cue to say, well, it was so great speaking with you. I wish you the best of luck on that hike. I hope it's great fun. So actually that future mention is a nice little tie-in, and it's a really clean, nice, polite way to thank them for the conversation and then wish them the best of luck on whatever their future endeavor is.
That's a good idea.
Easy.
Let's say you're at a party and you want to make sure that someone feel comfortable coming up to you. What would be good body language?
Oh, I love it. Okay, so what you want to look for yourself and others is the pivot out. So whenever you're trying to approach 2 people or 3 people, anytime they're both facing each other so their toes are aligned, we know that they're probably not open to anyone else.
They're having a conversation. Don't interrupt
Don't
them.
interrupt them. So when you want to be approached or you want to approach someone else, look for the pivot out. That's when someone's, they're talking to each other, but their body is actually angled out. Their toes are angled out. That means they're much more open
They're available
to approach, and you want to do the same. So if you're talking to someone, you still want people to come up
Right.
to you. Make sure you pivot out towards the room. That signals people that you are open, physically and literally.
And I would guess too, get off your cell phone.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I hope that goes without saying. The worst thing you can do is
Now, it's a habit for a lot of people, and they assume that anybody can come up and talk to them. But if I see someone on their cell phone, I'm not going to approach them.
And the problem is when we get nervous and we have no one to talk to, what do? We're like, I'm going to pretend to text.
Right?
So
Yeah.
the problem is it's this bad cycle. You don't have anyone to talk to, so you pretend to text, and then no one comes up to you. So what I would say is you're much better off going to get a drink. Always have something in your hand. It feels nicer to have something in your hand.
Right.
And plant yourself right where people exit the bar or the food. Because that's the sweet spot. That's where everyone's like, I have no one to talk
Right,
to. So
right.
be that person who's like, hey, so what are you drinking? What'd you get?
Yeah.
Doesn't this food look great? Hey, hello, how are you?
Yeah. Gotcha.
Plant yourself right there.
Really good tips, Vanessa, as always. We want to tell folks, if you'd like to find out more, Human Lie Detection Body Language 101, Vanessa.
Okay, from the same person, sorry kasi medyo magaling talaga yung communication channel niya. Okay, so this one, this is the last pa pala, is usually a question that is asked during interviews. Tell me about yourself. Okay, that's the first one that they ask you. How do you respond? Okay, will greatly impact your interview.
An airplane or in the interview, or you sit next to a chatty Cathy at a party, and they ask you the question, so, tell me about you. I have to admit, I hate this question. I never know what they want me to say. Do they want me to spill my life story? Should I be vague and fuzzy? Should I tell them something vulnerable? Is that too much? And so I decided to create a little framework for myself so that I knew exactly how to answer this question. And I've been using it. It's been so helpful that I wanted to share the framework with you. I'm going to tell you exactly how you should answer this question so that it gives a great answer without being too vague or too overly specific, as well as some things not to do. In fact, I want to start with the not to do's first. First, don't be a deer in the headlights. I think the first couple times someone asked me this question, so tell me what you do, I basically went like this. There was so many possible answers in my head that I basically became a deer in the headlights and couldn't say anything at all. Number 2, don't spill your life story. So after I had those few deer in the headlight moments, I kind of went the other direction. I was like, well, when they ask, tell me about you, they must want to hear everything. And so I started to share everything. Oh, well, I was born in Los Angeles, California, and I'm a Taurus, and my mom had eggs for breakfast the day that I came into the world, and my dad was really nervous, but he was, I went into my whole life story, and I could just see people, slowly back away. So this is not an invitation to share your entire life story. Number 3, don't be oddly vague. So after I was deer in the headlights and then sharing my life story, the next thing I tried to do was kind of skirt this question because I didn't like it. So I would share very vague generalities. Oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Been a little here, a little there. I do all kinds of things. I keep busy. The problem with that answer is it didn't satisfy anyone and it made me seem low confident. So what do you do? If you don't want to do those 3 things, here is what I want you to do when someone asks, tell me about you. Step number 1, add a positive qualifier. Tell me about you is a big question. And so you want to start off with a qualifier that you're not going to give your entire life story, but you are going to give the good parts. This is a great way to set yourself up for success. And also, it hopefully is going to reel people in. So I typically start off with something like, when someone asks me this question, oh my goodness, well, I'll stick to the good parts. Or, ooh, there are so many good things. How about I tell you about... That way, I'm not prefacing that it's going to be a whole big thing, but I'm going to give them just the juicy highlights. That way, I also give myself permission to not have to give my entire life story. So try, oh, where to begin? So many exciting things. Or, let's see, I'll skip to the good parts. Step number 2, give yourself a label. So this is the one that people most often get confused with. And the way that our brain works is it likes a hierarchy of facts. Let me explain this concept. So basically, our brain likes to work in sequence, and it likes to start with the biggest categories down to the most specific ones. So if I were to say, oh, well, I love working with students, your brain would say, what kind of students and what do you teach? And if I were to say, oh, I love teaching English to students, my brain would say, okay, English to students, what age and where? But if I start off with, I'm a teacher, I love teaching English to students, immediately the brain gets it because I started off with the big label, I am a teacher. So what I want you to start off with when someone says, tell me about you, is what is the label that makes you feel most proud? That could be professional. Are you a marketer, a teacher, a writer, entrepreneur? Or it could be something personal. Are you a mother or a wife or a team leader or a church leader? When you think about those labels, that's going to help someone get grounded. Ah, they are a mother. Ah, they are a teacher. That label is going to help them categorize whatever you're about to say next. So usually I say, well, I'm a writer and a mother. So those are my two big labels, and that gets someone to go, oh, okay, I know a little bit about her. And then I go into step number 3. Step number 3 is tell a story with a hook. The reason why sometimes tell me about you can trap us is because it doesn't always invite stories, and people end up listing facts. They say, well, I'm a mom and I live in Texas and I love vegetables and they end up just listing a bunch of facts, but no one likes facts. They're really hard to remember. So